So we're going to review law, investigation, and ethics. First, we're going to review quickly the types of computer crimes and criminal profiles. The types of computer crimes originally were largely for fun, for kicks. They were script kiddies that were just banging around to see what they could get away with. They could turn your web server into their web server by breaking into your computer and defacing it, by injecting their web pages and things along these lines. But more and more it has evolved around to where these are professional and sophisticated criminals, and they're not doing it for fun and they're not doing it for a grudge, they're doing it for money. Statistics show that in the last year it has rolled to where the vast majority of all computer crimes were either direct theft of funds or it was extortion. If you don't pay me this much money, I'm going to release this confidential information to the public. I'm going to sell these credit card numbers, things along those lines. So the computer crimes have gotten substantially more sophisticated, more professional in nature, and substantially more high dollar in nature. And the criminal profile, as I indicated, originally they were the script kiddies and the guys that were just doing it for the challenge, or it was the guy that was doing the pen testing to validate that his system was secure. These were the types of break-ins that we were seeing. But nowadays, again, that has changed. These are the more professional, more serious, more skilled criminals. Regarding privacy issues and privacy laws, more and more what we're seeing is legislation that is making it illegal and even sentenciable by jail time if you leak private information of your customers. Things like HIPAA and Sarbanes-Oxley and Gramm-Leach-Bliley all deal with accuracy and confidentiality of financial and medical information. So these laws now are getting stronger and more prevalent to where it's become our formal obligation to protect the privacy of this type of information. We also have different types of laws, especially here in the United States. We need to remember that we have civil law, also called tort law. We have administrative law, that's regulatory in nature. And then we also have, let's see, civil, criminal law is the third type. And criminal law, of course, has the highest level of burden of proof to prove that someone did the crime, whereas with civil law, it's a lower burden of proof requirement. And generally, the penalties go along with that. Lesser penalty with civil law, stronger penalty, even the penalty of death with criminal law. We have intellectual property laws, such as a patent, a trademark, copyright, and another relatively new law is called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act that protects the violation of protective mechanisms on copyrighted material. Now, you might say, well, what does that have to do with us? Well, really what it has to do with us is your source code for any custom program or application is considered copyrightable. If you copyright your source code and then compile it into an executable, you now have encrypted your source code, and the DCMA law protects your executable from being reverse engineered, decompiled. That would be a violation of DCMA and can be prosecuted by law. So we have these intellectual property laws trying to knock down software piracy and the theft of your valuable intellectual property. Now we roll into a whole other arena called the investigation of computer crimes. The first thing we need to do is have an incident response team. This is a collection of highly skilled individuals, skilled in many facets. We need an IT guy, somebody with technical savvy. We need a human resources guy. We need somebody that knows something about the law, perhaps even a little legal guy. We need other facets of our organization, human resources, legal department. I think we've covered all those. Anyhow, I need support, highly skilled support from these various facets, because as we start investigating these computer crimes, it has to do with different people inside my organization, people outside the organization. It has to do with technology, and it has to do with very careful handling and processing of the crime scene. So first I have to have an incident response team, someone that will recognize when a crime happens. They're responsible to come together and perform this investigation. Now, what do they do when they get to the crime scene? The first thing they do is stop the bleeding, stabilize the patient, and restore basic functionality. In other words, don't let the virus that's currently deleting all the content off your hard drive, don't let that run any longer. Pull the plug on the box if you have to, but stop the bleeding, stop the losses to the organization. So that's the first thing we do. The next thing we do is we secure the crime scene and we photograph the heck out of it. You photograph everything, including what's on the monitor, what's inside the computers, what's on the desk, from different angles. How is it cabled up? What are the devices that are connected here? Things along those lines. Then what we do is we carefully identify and then secure all evidence, and we document the heck out of this evidence. Where do we find it? Of course, we've taken photographs of it already. Where do we find it? Who picked it up? Who stored it? How do we handle it? How do we verify that we didn't corrupt the integrity of the evidence? Things along these lines, because this chain of evidence is one of the more critical components of not just prosecution, but also the CISSP exam. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about that in a moment. So we have to now collect this evidence and secure it properly. We transport it someplace for analysis, then we have to secure it until the court case comes up. Then we have to transport it to the courthouse. We present it in court, and eventually, hopefully, we can return it back to the victim. Now, that could be a 1 or a 2 or even a 3-year process, depending on the nature of this court case. But at some point, eventually, that evidence should find its way back to the victim. And again, let's talk about different types of evidence. The evidence that is maintained in electronic format should always be copied in a bit level copy. And we only analyze the copy. We never analyze the original. So bit level copies on all hard drives, floppy drives, optical drives, etc., duplicated at the bit level, and then analyze the bit level copy. Never analyze the original, because you might corrupt the original. Further, we must always prove that in our processing we have not corrupted the integrity of the evidence. So again, chain of custody is very important. And what does this mean? This means we have to validate and document each and every time somebody touches this evidence. Why did they touch it? Who were they? What did they do? How did they not violate the integrity of the evidence? And all the details that go along with that. Your local legal system will pretty much be able to identify to you what documentation should be there to help you support a case in those local jurisdictions. These are the types of things that may change from state to state, and especially from one country to another country. As we get involved in international evidence handling, it's a whole other nightmare. So do your best to document as much as you can, and hopefully you've covered all the targets that your particular evidence is going to be required to have documented on it. Now, finally, we're going to talk about ethics. There's several different types of ethics. We have the Internet Architecture Board that identifies what type of activities are considered unethical in the, on the Internet. And these would include the unauthorized access of information, or the unauthorized modification of information, or the exercising tests on the Internet that may actually degrade the performance of the Internet. Things along these lines. So remember, the Internet Architecture Board has a list of activities that are considered unauthorized on the Internet. You should take a quick look at those. And then finally, the ISC Squared Code of Ethics has 4 major canons. You need to know those 4 major canons, and you need to know them in order. Now, I don't know the exact words of them off the top of my head, but I do know essentially what they say, and this is a good way for you to remember it. Basically, it says the most important thing for you to do is be a good person. That means don't damage anything, don't do any harm. Second thing says be a good person. The third canon says be a good CISSP, and the fourth canon says promote the profession of security professional. Do no harm, be a good person, be a good CISSP, promote the profession of security professionals. And they are listed in that order for a reason. If you ever get into an ethical conflict where your boss says, don't report this crime to the police, we'll cover this up, but you know it has to be reported. Remember, crimes are crimes against the public. That means if you don't report it, you are doing harm to the public. That's the topmost canon. You must report this crime. Even though be a good CISSP says, do what your boss tells you. The higher level canon says, do no harm. And by not reporting it, you are doing harm to society. You have to report this. You need to remember those 4 canons and their order of priority.